Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. We have great pleasure of having with us author, show host, Solaris BlueRaven. She's a published author of several books, including the one that we're going to be talking about tonight, Alien Intelligence. She is definitely going to be educating these beards because we are novices in this subject, and we're really looking forward to this conversation. Solaris BlueRaven is next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right. Justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, man. Well, welcome. We survived the storm, gentlemen.
We have.
That was some, Elsa, she decided to actually let it go. There's a cheesy joke for the day. Yeah, so she decided to continue on and left us alone. And so luckily we didn't have any interruptions. So we were able to continue with the shows and welcome Solaris BlueRaven to the program. There we go. Hey, Solaris, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
I'm well. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Oh, and everybody, I want to just a brief introduction for her too. I mean, we're not going to go through the whole thing. We'll be here for a while. She's got so many accomplishments here. Go to nightshadowanomalydetectives.com. We'll put that link up there for everybody. At nightshadowanomalydetectives.com. Solaris is published author of several books, including Eye of the Remote, Black Operations in Areas Beyond 52, Transmutation through Ascension, Mr. Sun and the Halloween Ball Till Midnight. The one we're going to be talk a little bit about here, Alien Intelligence, which I read. I really enjoyed the book. I mean, it was definitely. I wrote down, and I've got them right here. I've got several things that there's some stuff I hadn't even really thought about before and even knew. So I'm really looking forward to that. You are a true clairvoyant, MT healer, remote viewer, craft practitioner. You have systems buster for MK Ultra, which is we're probably gonna have you back when we do an MK Ultra show, because that's one of those things. Really looking forward to that. And if you can't tell of that item behind her right there, she is an accomplished martial artist, having earned a 2nd degree black belt and also an instructor. So wow, I mean, I could keep going, but we don't have all day to keep tying it up just listening to your accomplishments, man.
Thank you.
And show host. I mean, I didn't even get to the show host. I mean, you just go down the list. I'm just amazed with it. It makes me feel like I'm a slacker. It really does. Everybody can go to YouTube. Medusa Storm. Is it Medusa Storm 001? Is that the YouTube channel?
Yes, it is. And
okay.
Yeah, it is.
And
providing nobody else is using that, which I'll find out.
We little inside bit we found. I let her know that there's a couple people pretending to be her on Twitter that we discovered. So it was one of those. So, but man, everybody, like, we're going to start the book, and I'm going to show it up here on the screen for everybody, so that way they can see exactly which one we're talking about. This one, this was written January 26th of 2020, and how's the response been so far for you on this book?
Oh, Alien Intelligence, very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
It was well received. It's been well received, selling fairly well. And it helped because I did a presentation out in California and San Francisco right before the shutdown, connected to Alien Intelligence, and we had a great response from the audience at that time. So yeah, I suggest, I propose people read it. Actually, there's a lot of good information in there for people.
Mark, you are correct. There can only be one Solaris.
That's right.
I don't think that. Yeah,
we
gotta. Yeah, so,
he knows that.
Yeah, everybody appreciates you sharing the show too. I mean, just getting right into it. I mean, it was everything from I've heard of black satellites. You know, I mean, a lot of people have heard of that. I didn't really know a whole lot about the black satellite tech, and one of the ones that there was a quote that you had in there that I really hung on to is that you are the alien you seek. Look no further.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so how, what led to that conclusion for you that, you came up with that one?
Well, we are the lineage. In other words, we are the ancestors of the visitors at the DNA code level. So that's what I'm looking at when it comes down to our starseed heritage. And that which most people don't even access that aspect to themselves, but it is part of who we are in the equation of the bigger scenery. And that's why I say if you're looking for extraterrestrial or celestial design work, it's within. It's also intersected and interfacing with the off-world species. And we've been doing that for a long time. And if you're contactee types, then you've automatically been connecting in with these types of beings who are part of your ancestry for more than likely.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah. And that was one of the things that was like going through this book as you read that was, I won't lie. I mean, I felt like I was well understudied. I mean, I was looking through it and I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm actually writing notes. I mean, I'll give you this compliment.
Highlighters are good.
I didn't learn until you're reading your book that you can highlight passages on Kindle. I just discovered that.
Can you?
Yeah, well, I'll read your book. Yeah, so
good.
there's a way to go through and highlight. And so that as I was coming back, I had all these yellow highlighted things. I'm like, see, I learned something. As I said, reading your book, I had no idea I had that capability on Kindle to be actually, and there's on the Kindle app on my phone. So I was able to just highlight all this stuff. And that was pretty cool.
Very good.
Yeah, so yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because he's not going to highlight no regular hardback book because he reads them with gloves on. He's like this.
Yeah, there's none of my books have broken spines. That won't ever happen. I treat them. It's like blessing holy books. I won't break them. But,
I highlight all my books. I'm bad.
Yeah, there's some other people. I mean, I think the one that really gets me the most are the book murderers, the people that cut them in half.
Oh no.
Because the books are too big, and so they'll slice them in half so that way they're portable. And I'm just like,
I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
But through reading this, I mean, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting. What are you kind of a believer in the simulation theory?
Insofar as here, this world and the illusion of, I would say it's a holographic design work to begin with, this world. I call it the illusion of because it seems like everything's a stasis of illusion. But my point is that, it's holographic to some degree. It's programmable. So you can program reality in a sense of your belief systems, what you input, output kind of thing, same way with your brain. So I see it as kind of a simulation to some degree based on a formula where people can design what they want. As you can tell, due to belief systems and global belief systems for decades and centuries, it's not turning out so well. So we might want to step it up a little bit. And that's why I mentioned stepping up to the galactic neighborhood, which is really about stepping it up in consciousness and evolving as, a galactic being, so to speak, right?
Now, how it's kind of like that. And I just want to jump to a question I had a little further down. How would you recommend like a beginning point for somebody? Because when you like that stepping up process that you said there, what would somebody like, say myself, Chris, Austin, somebody that's new into this, what would be the best place to start to join this? I mean, because I know everybody has to take their own path, on journey,
right.
But it's like in martial arts, you have your basic tenet, you have your basic moves, your stances. So kind of like in this thing, what is the first thing that we need to do to embark on a path like this to up, your consciousness?
Well, the best thing you can do is shadow the self. In my opinion, it starts within. So the idea behind spirituality, whatever formula that takes, basically getting to know thyself is the equation behind it. Also deprogramming from what I call linear thought forms and non-productive thought forms. Most people have been socially engineered into a lie, so they have to deprogram from that. So that takes a little bit of stepping into yourself and letting go of some programs that have been running since maybe indoctrination as a child, who knows, throughout your lifetime. That sort of thing does happen. And also just walking the path of spirit, not sitting on a mountain and meditating all the time, but just being aware of consciousness and asking and intuitively bringing in aspects of what I call the higher self over soul, superconscious design, the multidimensional design, which you are, and integrate that into your field. And it's not woo-woo science. It's really about what we are as energy beings. And once we dial into that, we can access other world realities, and it becomes very, very clear on a lot of different levels insofar as the information.
Yeah, I would agree. With that's one of the things as we've been doing some of these shows and getting into this thing, I realize that just the power of the mind seems, has really been something that, and we talked about before, like you said, the programming of children. I'm even guilty of it. And it's one of the, because you look at it, you think of it, how many times have you told your kid, no, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And you enforce this strict set of guidelines that you were taught, that they were taught. I mean, down the path, when you realize, you need structure, but at the same time, when the kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, I think it's this, this, and this," it's more important to sit there and listen to what they're experiencing before you just simply crush it and say, "No, absolutely not. It is a square."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. I think they should be allowed to dream, expand their consciousness, their spirituality, whatever that is, whatever that blueprint is. But also the parents, I think a good foundation isn't a bad thing. I mean, and learning manners, that's the first thing we teach in martial arts is courtesy. If you don't have courtesy, you're not going to make it. So the point is, mutual respect, common courtesy, little things in life that go a long way. But the non-productive things that go on where people are just entity controlled and there's just this constant chatter stuff. I mean, you see it all the time on the internet and the illusion of, we were talking about trolls and this and that sort of thing. That's a non-productive behavioral pattern in a program that doesn't have any value when you look at things like that. So
you're saying basically we run an indoctrination program in our head. So we've got to get rid of that in order to find the spirituality, in order to reach the outer rims.
Yeah, I think so. I think quite honestly, you need to shed some skin, so to speak, insofar as just letting go of some things that have been programming the psyche. And it doesn't mean you have to do like this full-blown re-education, but my point is that letting go of the things that don't support you on a multidimensional design, the things that have been holding you in limitation energetically, whether they've been inherited or whatever, those things need to be recycled, what I call, or transmuted alchemically. And that would benefit you to see beyond the veil insofar as seeing what I'm talking about with higher perspective, higher consciousness, because we are multidimensional celestial beings. I mean, we're energy beings. We're very attuned and dialed into fields of energy, but most people have not been trained for that. I mean, schools don't teach you that sort of thing. And it's just about awakening to that aspect.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, like, kind of like just piggybacking on a little bit on that one too. It's like, when kids come to you and tell you, "I've seen something," how many times have I could think back where I'm like, "No, you didn't," no. It just, and I look back at it and I actually feel bad because this is something like, not saying he's got those gifts, but I mean, how do I know? Because I told him he was just, it was just imagining, now you didn't see anything. And you start realizing that I have almost as much to learn from them as I do, the other way, teaching him. And that's one of those things, like, I really, hold on a second. I have a spammer calling me. Should we put him on the show?
It's probably the creep.
Yes. Yeah. Also,
Bye,
I get
spammer.
these ones. I know, I get these all the time. All of a sudden it's popping on. It's like, I'm like, spam call. I'm like, yes, we should bring him on. Maybe one of those Social Security fraud ones. That would be fun on show.
So I mean, he brought up a great point. Craig brought up a great point. So when do we decipher? Somebody needs to write a book on when should we decipher mental health versus our child actually seeing things and it being in the spiritual realm or the outer realm, as far as aliens and other stuff, versus, oh, they're just crazy. We need to get them some mental help, because you pay a psychologist to tell you you're crazy, but
Yeah.
So
yeah, the psychologists are literally indoctrinated into the false matrix, in my opinion. I don't know if he's still talking. I'm sorry. There was a delay on there.
No.
But
No,
no,
you're
it's
good.
a good point you make. And I will say children have always been allowed to dream before this illusion and delusion of a world. I mean, people bring in their creativity through divine spark, and contactee children are usually very, very attuned to experiences. What I would say is that there are times when, these children may have gone through trauma that might create some psychological issues. And yeah, you want to get it evaluated and looked at. I mean, there's different perspectives. You've got to look at the atmospheric condition of the house. Has the child gone through traumatic events that have caused some kind of a break of some kind? Let us not forget the covert warfare programs that I'm familiar with indoctrination into electronic torture, psychotronic weapons, and remote and interconnected technologies, where even a child can be indoctrinated into a program like that, where they're hearing voices and communication, getting forced visuals and images that are not connected to psychic energy, but are technological streaming. And that is something you're going to see more and more of deployed throughout this country and the world in the next few years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the things, like you said, where you're talking, like we mentioned in the beginning, the MK Ultra, how these things, the psychic abilities that there's well-known study, cases and stuff where this has been, kids have been brought up from, newborn and just put into these programs for these abilities and put in these type of things. And that's one of the questions, like you talked about the synthetic dimensions in the book. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is just like the simulation theory, who is behind this? I mean, because there's always like an end goal, whoever has created the box, there's got to be a reason for that box. And what are you leaning towards as the creator of the box, the people that are trying to craft this, trying to control this reality?
Well, from my own experience and also decoding the covert technology I've been subjected to, it's usually in connection to black ops, black technologies departments, sometimes alphabet agencies, CIA comes to mind, different spin-off agencies associated who have access to the technology that can make it work. Also privatized funding as well. So you're looking at private platforms, sometimes not necessarily space platforms, but other platforms where they're definitely in connection to these types of technology. So it's kind of a globalist thing in a sense. It's not just one country, although the United States has been like the front runners when it comes down to covert indoctrination and harassment. I mean, you've heard of targeted individuals and such, and they have been wearing kind of a screen when it comes down to what they've been doing behind the scenes, because we are dealing with digital fields of energy that are literally programming everybody since, I don't know, for several decades now. So they're behind a lot. They're behind a lot of it, the technology itself. You can kind of follow the money too. Yeah,
that's always a good adage, especially for anybody that's in this field. If you really want to know what's going on, follow the money. I mean, you can see where the dollars go. Because, I mean, we'll go to kind of an unrelated thing, but it's one of the ones I always say. Prior to 9/11, very few people they seem to always forget this part. September 10th. 2001, Donald Rumsfeld gets up there on a press conference at the Pentagon and talks about the trillions of dollars that are unaccounted for in defense spending. And then 9/11 hits, and it's never talked about again. And it's one of the things. You look at it, it's just like, if you think about it, follow the money. We're not talking like, hey, we're missing a couple million. I mean, we're talking. I think it was like $3.5 trillion that they're like, we don't know where it went. It's unaccounted for. And so you're like, and of course, I'm sure, you were over there. It's like, MK Ultra, so, you have all these black ops programs, like you said. It's like, we know where the money is going. You're finally just admitting that, like the Independence Day movie theme, you don't really think they spend $600 on a hammer, do you? It's just, that's how they have the funding. But I really liked, like, one of the really made me think about it too, was under that synthetic dimensions that you're talking about, was the false imaging, the projections that are not limited to psychotronic delusions and optics. So UFOs, ghosts, illusions of ancestors, aliens, or people. And I wanted to, especially since we had a few shows, I wanted to get on that one. Now, do you think these are targeted instances, or do you believe that a majority of these experiences that are going on out there have something to do with these programs? Or is this just something where someone like yourself, where you said you've been targeted, where they're doing it specifically at these people for these things?
I think they extract certain people depending on their skill level. Like with me, it was an extraction out of my home. Literally, it was a covert induction. So, how many people get extracted out of their homes like that? I'm not certain. I do know that there's a global agenda in a sense of indoctrinating people and also calibrating them to their version of artificial intelligence, which is a linear program here. It's synthesized here on this world. It's not off-world intelligence. And with that comes what we were just describing, or what you were talking about. And also in my book is the psychotronic weapons and the types of synthetic telepathies and also the imagery. So what happens is the psychic centers can get hijacked and when they get interfaced with signals. And with that comes imagery that doesn't belong to spirit or consciousness or multidimensional design. It becomes more connected to a covert intelligence screen program. And that's where you see contactees who get, they get their own unique experiences. Then they get extracted into military abductions, MyLabs, and get pulled into programs where they're seeing screen memories, which those memories are manufactured through the artificial intelligence digital interface.
Yeah, that's kind of... that was one of the things I was curious, because you always have these people, there's certain ones where they say they've been constantly, targeted, abducted. And if you look in, especially like with alien abductions, I mean, at a certain point, there has to be more of that's always popped in my head is the why. Why would an entity, we'll just play it out. I mean, since there's so many unknowns, let's just say, the little green man in the UFO flies down and abducts, you have to say, okay, well, here's a story. She's got an amazing story going, but this has happened 20, 30 plus times. Well, the skeptic side of me is like, why would an entity like that need to keep abducting you? They should have had all the information. And so then that's what I said. That's what it pops in when you're like, so this would make a little more sense that this could be something, a man-made craft, situation to where to let your mind cope with the trauma or whatever you're going through, you're able to write this up as I've been abducted by this alien race over and over and over and over and over again. Meanwhile, they're just conducting a series of experiments on you.
Yeah, it's also a threat to national security. And I've touched on this in numerous radio shows, but my point is that when you have a contact who has a unique and organic connection to off-world intelligence or species, there comes a lot of information, data, celestial design work. You get a lot of information. That becomes a threat because that's something that departments can't control. So they'll have to be the middleman where they tag and track an individual, interconnect them into the technology and do an extraction drill to see what they know. And that has a lot to do with hypnosis and interfacing technologies. And then they can bring out or create a screen memory which shows whatever happened to them, like that's really what happened, when in fact it was probably the guys in the black ops departments and covert warfare probably doing whatever through the technologies. That's highly probable. And that's something they don't discuss with the UFO community very often. They do talk about MyLabs, but they really haven't pinpointed what's going on in the Pentagon, what's going on in DC, and why has this continued for I don't want to say centuries, but decades, when it comes down to the type of abuse and psychological torture and imagery that's been happening with these people being indoctrinated into these projects.
In April, she put a comment, I don't know if you could see on the screen. Do you believe gods and goddesses, angels are in fact, ETs, or is it kind of what we were saying before, where in certain instances it falls into these programs, but there are, in fact, because I'm a believer that there's still these natural type entities, but I just, yours definitely made me think that there could be something else to this where, this also could be, some instances are artificial.
Right. Well, they've been hijacked. If you look at anything connected to belief systems and whether it's deity, God and goddess, that's been hijacked. Symbols have been hijacked. Everything has been bastardized. So you look at it on that level. But yes, absolutely. In my opinion, divine being, divine spark, divine God and goddess, whatever you want to be resonating with, is definitely in an aspect of what I call the oversoul and the Godhead. And yes, divine forces are out there. I'm very familiar with the divine, pure energy, pure light consciousness beings that don't have an agenda. So yeah, that's that in my opinion. When you're in pure consciousness design, if your belief systems are pure of heart, just like drawing the sword from the stone, absolutely, those beings are there. What they're doing, what these covert warfare departments are doing in the global agenda, is literally hijacking those things, in a sense of hijacking energy, hijacking psychic energy, and then creating their own formula and design of imagery to interface onto a target of interest, and that creates confusion, distortion, and it's a lie, and actually it's an abomination in my opinion, and you don't want that stuff going on.
No, no, go ahead, Chris.
So what do you think the master motive of this all is?
The master motive is about mind control and mass indoctrination. In other words, one hive collective that has the same belief systems, cookie cutter, where you're not accessing off-world intelligence or you're not having a unique relationship with an off-world species, even your multidimensional design without them giving you the okay. And really, they're reeling everybody into this web in a sense of trying to keep everybody indoctrinated into a program in a false matrix where they have the ultimate control over your brainwave activity. So if you're dreaming, you're going to be streaming digital imagery versus your natural organic dream time. And this is something that I think people should pay attention to and keep logbooks insofar as what they're experiencing in their dreams, because a lot of people are getting hijacked and brain hacked through the dream time.
And it's funny you said that. I probably a couple months ago, I actually started doing that, started writing down some dreams, because I started having some really vivid type dreams where it wasn't anything really odd. It was just like highly specific, things that are, and normally, when you wake up, you're like, oh yeah, that was weird. What happened? I can't remember. Now, this one, I mean, it was almost like a short story. I could actually vividly recount every step that went through this dream. And it's for a later show. We're not going to recount this one because, show that I'm crazy. It's one they're definitely some ones where I started recommending that to people. It's like, yeah, write this stuff down, because you never know, like you said, the parallels and patterns if we compare notes and suddenly, you're talking about, I was in this, I saw this and this and this, and I'm like, oh my God, I saw that too. Then you can start making these connections, and then you can start, it's like finally pulling that thread that kind of lets things go through to where people like yourself that are able to put these pieces together are able to help, where somebody like myself would be like, I have no idea but all I remember seeing was this hangar door that said 18. That's it. I don't remember, you'd be like, oh my God, you know exactly what it is. But
plus you're looking at the numerology aspect of it as well. I mean, I can decode quite well. I'm sure you can as well, all of you. But yeah, it's very interesting. And when you have those synchronicity oriented events, that's, in my opinion, there's no coincidence there when people are connecting in. And that's the one thing I love to see, is their own individual spark connected to their own dream time and also their multidimensional state of consciousness. It's very sacred, and it's being hijacked.
Yeah, you said a numerology, a part of it. I've been seeing 555 lately. That's been just popping up everywhere.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely a pattern. Yep. There are a lot of people that I know have been seeing the numbers sequencing lately, a lot of them, all the time. And it's like numbers like what you said, 3 3s, everything you can imagine with those synchronistic numbers are starting to pop up like a clock.
Yeah, that I know one of the other ones I wanted to get with you too, especially this off your book. I think I'm gonna mispronounce this word, I'm sure. I want to say it's the Merkaba signal.
Yes, you're right. Bravo. Perfect. All right.
such a relief is off the shoulder. Yeah. So I wanted you to go into that, because that was a new one for me too. I'd never heard of the Merkaba signal before.
Well, the Merkaba signal is created through your light body. This isn't woo-woo New Age, by the way. This is old mystery school teachings, but the New Age community did hijack quite a bit of it. But the idea behind this is your spiritual body, when you're doing a lot of spiritual work, you're receiving initiations, or you're on the path of spirit, you get more light built into your body. We call it light body levels. You start mutating and morphing into a higher light field of energy, which means you're expanding into multidimensional space through your frequency. That's what the light field is about. So once you start going into these fields and you get these light level body activations, it morphs into eventually a Merkaba signal, and a Merkaba, which is the vehicle of light, was a very sacred geometric symbol, which connects into your unity with the full light universe, your unity with universal consciousness. And it does have what I call the universal celestial heartbeat and pulse when you start unifying your chakra system through the heart center and really creating and expanding the pillar of light. So that is a very unique design. It connects into all multiple world realities and pure energy, pure light, pure states of consciousness without any, strange distortions. And it is something that is of interest in these covert departments, because when I was inducted in 2004, they were very interested in my Merkaba signal, and they interfaced that signal onto their communication systems and also onto their artificial intelligence program. And it was measured later on, the signal that they interconnected. So yeah, it is a very sacred symbol, and is a very sacred energetic frequency that most, and I would say all beings, star beings, when they're doing the spiritual work, can activate.
I'm trying to bring one up here. Hopefully it's not going to be my infamous, tiny picture that nobody can see.
Yeah, you're good for that.
Yeah, that's it's. Let's see if I got that right. Should be this one.
Yeah, you can Google these days. Yeah, Merkaba.
Yep. Okay, good. Yeah, it's normally when I get it, picture that inner triangle, that's about the size of the photo. That usually seems to be my luck when I'm trying to bring one up real quick for everybody. But yeah, so that's an awesome way to, because that's what everybody, once again, we're talking about her book, Alien Technologies, Technology Intelligence, Alien Intelligence, Solaris BlueRaven. You can go to Amazon, pick that up. That's where I got it. And this is one of the things, like, there were several things going through the book, and this is one of the ones that really stuck out to me because I had never heard this before. And that was one of the things I really was looking forward to getting you on the show to talk to you about, because that was one of those I really wanted to learn. And one of the other ones too was the virtual Kyber field. I don't know anything about that either. So I mean, that's I put several things on the list of stuff that I definitely wanted you to cover and with everybody. So what is the virtual Kyber field?
Oh, cyber field. I was trying to figure out what you're saying.
Field.
Right?
Kyber.
Okay. Sorry.
I can't read my own
cyber,
notes, apparently.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Now, the virtual cyber field is that which they've created. In other words, it's hijacking of kind of like the ether field. It's almost like a different band and transmission of frequency, which is accessible almost like in a digital way to a point where they can indoctrinate people into that field, where they're using it for training, recruitment, interface with technologies, and a lot of the streaming with the digital streaming that I'm talking about when you're getting brain hacked remotely. So it is a virtual field where it's very interactive and it feels like you're really having an experience, but that is also part of the manufactured technologies on a lot of different scales, especially when it comes down to the covert warfare. You're seeing these technologies more and more, even though people don't really pay attention, but our ether field has been hijacked to some degree when it comes down to the energies of this world and the ley lines, et cetera, and a lot of other things. So, but not that you can't get beyond that, but my point is that that's what they're using right now. It's an aerial weaponization of space and the atmosphere.
That ties into the black satellite tech, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically, it's if you're, well, like what happened to me, if you get triangulated with the technology, you could be remotely interfaced, neurally interfaced with technology and streamed with the technology of communication, live in real time. And the black satellite technologies are also the ones that are usually the ones doing remote assessments and scans on a target of interest or a subject, where they can interconnect you with the technologies. And also that connects into the underground facilities as well.
Now, does that tie into the satellite that's been in Jupiter? There's always that rumor, one that's around that there's that black satellite. I mean, is there any connection between these two?
I can't answer that. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know. To be honest, that's not something, I don't want to say yes or no, but I would say anytime they're launching anything or showing anything that's theirs, I'm talking about mankind, it's nefarious. Usually there's a backdoor access and there's a way to manipulate on various levels insofar as technology goes and the types of technologies I'm talking about with the types of warfare programs. If it's natural, if it's organic to that particular illusion of a celestial body, then I would say it probably has its own surveillance and eye in the spy tech.
Is it? Do you feel? I mean, like for me, there's two camps really right now, especially with the latest batch of disclosure that came out, where there's ones that they believe like false flag events coming, and that's why this is kind of gearing up to that. And then you have the other group that's like, there's no way that society is going to buy an alien invasion type thing. And that's where, especially like with your book, it seems, I feel kind of with the way some of this disclosure, the way it's a perfect setup, because it's, if you create the problem and at the same time, and make it to where you are also the solution. So
that's what they do all the time.
And that's where I was wondering if Nazi scientists, we know Nazi Germany was way ahead of everybody with technology. They were starting to come out with the jet aircraft while we were still flying prop planes. And so these scientists, they hash, it's going to take we'll just go quick bridge thing here. They got split around the world. It's pretty well known. I'm convinced that the Roswell thing, that wasn't, I think that was an experimental craft that crashed and they had to go collect it because it was one of those, it was saucer shaped ones are being built by the Germans in Nazi Germany. So this wasn't that great. So I think this crashed, they found it, but going long story short, as it's going through, you can create this whole, it's like a long game thing. You build up this entire thing. Like you said, with this technology, you can start creating these things to where you've created this threat, you've created this thing. And now, unfortunately, guys, that's why with disclosure suddenly coming out and them admitting the Tic Tacs, we don't know what they are. Well, now you're setting up this fear. This is something we don't know what it is. We don't know how it is, but guess what? We are going to tackle this for you. We are going to defend you guys. And that we're fighting ourselves in this mock thing that's, through
simulation
control. And that's where I was wondering if with your book, if that kind of falls into that thing, if you feel like this is pretty much like a long gamed plan out PSYOP where they're just like, eventually we can get this to where it gets us closer and closer to this thing where more and more control is we get more and more people under our control is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, everything they're doing, you're right. I mean, it's literally just about an agenda, and as far as encapsulating the mainstream collective into a belief system that's not accurate. They've been doing it all along, and under the guise of national security, they're trying to cover up a lot of information. Most of what you're seeing with the Tic Tac, in my opinion, is ours, in a sense of the type of technologies we're able to do for simulation exercises. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't look very authentic off-planet to me. Another thing I also reference, and I've been talking about recently as well, is the idea behind the off-world species is not their ally. They don't have friends off planet. They burned their bridge with off-world intelligence. The star beings have not, but the people who have been weaponizing technology, misusing reverse engineer tech, and they sit there and they take the ancient artifacts and hijack everything else. Then they weaponize those technologies and use them against the masses with versions of MK Ultra, plus the psychotronics and synthetic telepathy, the things that I know about that torture people, not to mention attacking off-world species one-on-one. They've created enemies. So if they're telling you they have these contracts with extraterrestrials, that is not true. If they tell you that they're going to intercept, I know that there's an intercept coming from off-world species that's not their ally. I also know that they're going to ramp up a PSYOP connected to Project Bluebeam on steroids to convince everybody that the extraterrestrial is the enemy, when in fact the extraterrestrial is not the enemy. It's defending itself. It's also in response to who we are as star beings. So when you have your unique relationship to an off-world species, we're part of the galactic whole. Well, that's our birthright. That's our cosmic birthright to have that, and nobody has the right to interfere. And once they start interfering, they're creating what they call kind of like a spin-off reality, but also entanglement. When it comes down to they, meaning global intelligence programs. So yeah, they've got a lot to answer for, and I find that this whole game that they're playing, I don't want to play their game. I'm bowed out of the game. I don't want to be part of it. I exposed what I know they've been doing with the covert warfare, and I'm honed in on the off-world celestial design work, which is very positive. However, it's not going to tolerate what they're doing with the space weaponization, and also the idea behind creating their own agenda connected to monopolizing space in general. That's not going to wash. That's not going to work. So I know it's long-winded. Just want to bring that up.
Oh no! I mean, are you pretty much a believer in Project Solar Warden, that we do have the craft off-world?
Well, I've heard about the projects. Insofar as off-world technology, yes, we should have some things off-planet, but I do know a lot of what's been out there is become obsolete in a sense, and it's also been intercepted. Whether they're telling you or not, I'm not certain. But I do know that it's not as pretty as they paint everything up to be. So whatever they've been doing behind the scenes with off-world, it's more about an engagement. And when you're seeing what's going on here and the exercises they're doing, even with TikTok, that's preparation, that's simulation, but that's also a preparation, in my opinion, for something they can't fight. They cannot fight what's coming. And they cannot fight ascended symbiotic machines. And that's something they don't have access to. They have artificial intelligence, they have their version, but they do not have the types of technology I'm familiar with off-planet that will crush them.
And that's, that's one of the, is for anybody is, I mean, that in itself is enough to create the fear. It's like, oh my God, we have no way of defending ourselves from this.
Well, it's not about us though. You're not the target of the off-world species. They are. I want to make that clear. Okay. Y'all are not targets. Okay. This is about what they've done. Structure. Yeah.
Dude, Julie said Elon Musk knows something. And I find it ironic that the timing at everybody is trying to race to be the first person in space, with these new rockets. It's good timing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. He's up to, don't get me started with him, because he was interested in the neural weave and the neural interface. And of course that connects into the synthetic telepathy expos in 2004. So I know all about him and where he's at. And, you look at some of the rockets they're putting up. We don't need rockets. Just a heads up. We don't need the stuff they're doing. Also, he launched many, many satellites during the shutdown. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence at all.
Mm-hmm. No one thought about that. It made no sense.
A rocket almost every other day. Somebody ran across the theory the other day that the Antichrist is going to be digital. It's going to be a digital thing that's going to be implanted in our brains. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a little far fetched for you, but
not really.
Makes sense.
Well, when you look at the Antichrist in my book, The Remote Black Operations in Areas Beyond 52, I talk about in my version of the Antichrist is the misuse of technology. And with that comes the electronic God. And that can be an electronic, whatever you want to call it, interfacing. So say you love to pray and you love your quiet mind. You get interface with technology and you're constantly getting a chatter communication. You're not going to be able to pray. You're not going to be able to meditate. And every time you try to do something constructive to your own relationship, it will interface and it will create something that will stop you from speaking. It will try to rewrite your brain. It will try to attack you physically if you keep meditating or doing something in alignment with your own divinity. So yeah, I think that is, I don't think you're off target at all, quite honestly.
And I put that book up there on the screen for people to see. Yeah, so that
was published in 2008. Yeah, thank you.
And kind of piggybacking a little bit on what you guys were just discussing there too, and that's and I wonder that with Elon Musk, because especially with you saying about the stuff with the AI, he was firm. We have got to get to Mars to get away from AI. We can't do this. We can't do this. But then all of a sudden it was like he did a complete 180 to where all of a sudden he's doing, like you said, Neuralink. He's going for all these things, full on head into this AI aspect. And that's one of the things I've always just questioned. It's like, what changed? I mean, this is like almost like an overnight change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a compromise. He's also, in my opinion, is compromised because he has to be contracted with military in order to even break orbit. So you're talking about somebody who has to have some kind of an escort, some kind of a clearance and connection to an agenda, in my opinion. He'll never be able to go alone in a sense of do what he wants to do and follow his own dreams. But I find it suspect because all the torture, and you have no idea the kind of crap I've been through with this warfare program. It's disgusting. And I made it through it alive. But I can tell you, for him to glorify this technology and then try to say, well, everybody's going to get Neuralink and everybody's going to get upgraded. Dude, unless you've been interconnected with the technology like I have, don't even talk about it because it's not funny. And it's definitely a detriment if it's not being used on a positive scale. It's a weapon of war. And they need to understand that. People need to understand that these guys are misusing the technology. It's not about being smarter and being into transhumanism. This is a weaponized technology, and this is where they're going with it. Remote brain hacking people, and then, they do it all the time. But my point is, don't get me started, but I get very annoyed with it.
Yeah.
Especially when you know where I've been.
Yeah, what would be, Ron, he posted, what would be a good movie on this topic? I mean, is there
synthetic telepathy? There's so many out there. I can tell you one thing. If you look at the any sci-fi these days is always going to talk about psychotronic, synthetic telepathy, artificial intelligence. They're all just mirroring the CIA template in a sense of what they've been doing with experiments and then glorifying it. There are a lot of MK Ultra type warfare programs, and so far as Push comes to mind. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's a long, long time ago, but it was out. It was a really good film. But it's kind of like, in a sense, of people being modified or weaponized with their own unique abilities. The idea behind that is to weaponize you, is to create some kind of a weapon. And that's what they've been doing on a lot of levels. I would say also follow Philip K. Dick's work because he's spot on with all the technologies. And that's something that most people don't really see. But the Blade Runner, everything, right down to what I call the Scanner Darkly. If you've seen that, it was animated. I was just talking about this the other night. But the scramble suit that they talk about in A Scanner Darkly, which is an animated film, is spot on. Okay, you're being interfaced with technology, and you have a different field of energy, and you're hearing communication live in real time. And that synthetic telepathy could be an agent or somebody in a control room connected to you. It's not, it's not delusion. Live feed real time communication system.
Yeah, and that was one. It's for especially stuff when you're reading these things, especially when you're new to it. It's just like, I mean, there's so much to take in.
But I'll tell you, but people are being calibrated because if you watch the news, every time I turn around, they're talking synthetic telepathy, they're talking artificial intelligence. There's nothing artificial intelligence everywhere. So it shouldn't be very strange for anybody now. And if you're watching anything on television, the illusion of TV, all they have is stuff like this out there. So
why, kind of like you said, that was kind of one of the questions I had written down for you too, is why do you think there's been such a rapid change to, that doesn't exist, to like, oh yeah, we got it. I mean, they've gone this complete switch over to where all of a sudden they're willing to talk about it. They're willing to acknowledge it exists. They're not going to tell you specifics, but they're going to be like, oh yeah, that exists.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of disclosure too. I don't know if you're talking about UFOs in general, but I've been on the front lines of disclosing covert technology and the synthetic telepathy. Nobody was talking about synthetic telepathy until I just started talking about it, testified against it, put a book out back in 2004, And, I was the one out there on the front lines talking about this stuff. So yeah. But now that we have the disclosure with the regular, what I call people who are contactees or people who have experienced this technology, and not only have experienced it, but can prove it through an analysis. The type of technology I was interfaced with, it's provable. We've measured the tech, okay? This isn't a game. So my point is that they have no choice. They can run and hide, or they can tell the truth. But I do know that universal war crimes are a big deal. And when people are getting indoctrinated into technology that's weaponized, that's a war crime by universal law, universal code. It goes way beyond any type of Nuremberg here. And you're dealing with, no-touch torture for targeted individuals, among other things. I mean, it goes really, really dark and deep. So that's something that perhaps they need to be held accountable for at some point.
Wow, no touch torturing. That's crazy. So
and it's very popular.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No, he's good. We just he just dropped off. He'll be right back on. Yeah, no, it's one of those, and that was kind of where, like the MK Ultra and these other programs, I don't think people realize it. It's one of those things like when I was explaining to the guys too, they really, when people say, nah, this can't happen, it's like, I don't think you realize just the stuff that the US government alone has done. I mean, everything, Chris didn't know about the Tuskegee experiments, and I told, when I was explaining that to him, I'm like, you got to realize when people say, well, there's absolutely no way the US would do this to, citizens, like they willingly sprayed, disease on this black neighborhoods in Alabama just to see what happens and see how they reacted to it. I go, this isn't something that is a strange occurrence. We rounded up all the Japanese during World War II and put them in internment camps all over the West Coast. This idea that the government would never do these things to the U.S. citizens, I'm like, they have a long game here. We're just pawns. They don't care. They don't care if they go through a psyop, psychologically torture Austin every night, beaming images in his head. Because the whole point is they want to see if he goes crazy. And they want to see what happens.
That's the idea. They'll push you over the edge. And you're right on. That's the whole idea, is how much pressure can they take? Whether the subject or the target breaks under pressure with something harmful to themselves or somebody else. If you can write it out and you can transmute it alchemically, if you're really good at navigating, then you can break through it. And if you're like me, you can decode it and rewrite it, and then you can expose it. So, but most people don't have capabilities. Well, and I've been blessed to be able to do that. But my point is that most people don't. They don't know anything about this stuff. And when they start getting hit with it, it's going to traumatize the hell out of them. So my point is, you're right. And people are collateral damage. They don't care about the mass collective whatsoever. They don't care about your futures. They don't care about your state of consciousness. They don't care about anything. And I'm sorry, I used to be very productive, and I used to support our United States military and everybody until I found out what they were up to. Then I was like, you got to be kidding me. You can't be doing this. They can't be doing this.
So what you're saying, that is it safe to say that a normal, healthy person that has no mental health, never been traumatized, just lose their mind, and people be like, well, how did he just go crazy?
Yes. It's called targeted individuals. Yes. It happens a lot. And then what happens to these people? They get interconnected live feed with some kind of a technology, synthetic telepathy usually. Sometimes it's a mock communications and not a live handler. It's torturing them nonstop. It's showing them visuals. It's almost like you would say a demonic possession, but it's electronic possession. It's literally destroying their life. They can't have a functioning life anymore because they're completely traumatized. They wind up losing their jobs. They wind up losing their marriages. They wind up completely being cast out and dysfunctional, and then called not psychotronic. It is psychotronic. They're called schizophrenic and psychotic and this and that. And that's my point, is that this is something that can be looked at in a sense of decoded. It's not just about people being mentally ill. And you see more and more people today mentally ill, and I'm really questioning if they're really sick or not. They could be interconnected with some kind of attack.
Well, thank you for touching on that. That really answered my question.
You're welcome.
You see people that just lose it. I mean, good job, good family, and they just all of a sudden lose it, and you don't know why. They just go off into the stars.
Yeah. Well, in 2004, I was inducted into the program, and I was interconnected live feed real time with the handler and the tech. And I wasn't communicating with my husband. I was completely interfacing with synthetic telepathy. He thought I was on drugs. I never did drugs. I was a competitive athlete. Within 4 months' time, we were divorced because we weren't communicating. I was on Maui and my handler showed up. That's how they roll. Then they lie under oath. Then they try to erase your life like it never mattered. So yeah, I know the dark side of this technology and the people involved. I'm not sure if that's where you wanted to go, but I just wanted to mention that.
That's perfect. It was M.A. Allen. He posted on here about that mysterious energy attack that was near the White House. I don't know if you remember that.
I think do remember.
Was that last year that occurred?
I think it was right before. Wasn't it like November last year or something? I can't remember now. Something in that window. So, yeah. It was a different type of directed energy weapon, but guess what? Secret Service was having a hard time. Well, guess what? I went through something a hell of a lot worse than that. Nobody bothered with me. So I guess it's when your Secret Service gets affected, it's a big deal, right? So I'm laughing because I'm like, really? Okay. They should know that warfare program anyway. So.
Yeah. Do you think that's any, I mean, I know it's not, I know there's a little bit different, but I mean, do you think it's kind of slowly ramping up? Because remember, I want to say it was a couple years ago, Cuba. I think it was at the embassy where there were people that were getting sick. You know, they're getting massive headaches, and it was one of those. And there was some unforeseen weapon that they feel like that was being targeted. I think they wanted to say it was like a microwave.
That was Mexico. People were going over there getting sick, and they were trying to say it was the liquor, and then they were shooting this microwave that was giving people beating headaches, and they just couldn't figure out what it was.
I think there was another one too in another location, but yeah, no, there's definitely a deployment of that type of technology that's causing people to be very, very sick. And, you know, the thing is, it's temporary. If you get out of the environment, you usually can recover. These people are saying they have brain injuries. I would suspect they would, because what it can cause, long-term microwave exposure can cause a lot of anomalies and a lot of illnesses, especially connected to cancers and such. And also just having strange anomalies. You know, the brain is a magnificent thing. It's an interesting instrument, and it's very multidimensional. And it's more than what people realize. I mean, people don't use their brains half the time, but my point is that when you do, it's very switched on, and they know this. It's a driving system. So you can have a lot of health issues later on due to the type of technologies they use. Electronic, you know, what comes to mind is Afghanistan, when they were using and deploying through their satellites a lot of these transmissions, which were making their enemy surrender, where they were hearing voices and seeing images and hearing their God, and literally made them surrender. I think, you know, once again, following the delusion, but believing in it is what the masses are doing.
Yeah, M.A. Allen said that latest one, I think the article he sent was April 29th.
Okay.
And then Harlan was out here. It's like, April 29th, added together is 33. You know, she's like Freemason. I'm like, I go, this is when we get into numerology, where my mind, you know, I've got to have some people that are on specifically for numerology, because this is what it was where I start thinking Jim Carrey in his movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie. Well, it was very synchronistic. But the 11-2, you're looking at 29 too. That's a master number. That's a frequency number. They like that number a lot. 911, that's another master number. 11-2 right there. So you've got those frequencies and those connections connecting in. And
then, and that's kind of where I was wanting to go with some of those attacks, of just where I feel like these things are going through different areas where you're talking, where Chris brought up, some people just seem to go crazy. I've often wondered if it's something like that, where it's just sporadic testing, because if anybody's done the scientific thing, you have to have certain outliers, you have to have certain controls, or else the experiment, you know, so if you do a random thing, that also can be a legitimate sampling that can actually give you the results that you're after. In college, I did timber cruising, where for Willamette Industries, you went through and you didn't pick the same trees. You'd go through a stand and you would randomly pick a line, and you'd randomly measure the trees as you went through this line. And so you'd get a random sample, and just over time, you'd have these numbers. And I often wonder, it's kind of like you said, that's why somebody from Dayton, Ohio, somebody from Topeka, Kansas, you know, just these completely random, is like, why would this person be the one that's targeted and abducted 30 plus times? Like, I talk about a whole lifetime of being abducted. And you're like, why would somebody pick this housewife from Kansas to be the one? They fly all the way across the galaxy, and you're abducting the same person in this little farm town in Kansas. It's like, you know, it's these questions in my head, like, why? Well, this would make sense. It's a random selection. It's just like we ran, if you pick something out of random, well, you're going to get this thing. And then now you don't have these control things where, oh, well, you pick this genetics, you check. No, it's a random individual, and we're seeing what the effects are on this person.
At times it can be with directed energy weapons and targeted individuals. That can be. Contactees usually have a lineage connection. That's usually a DNA code thing, and sometimes it connects into their ancestral bloodline. Absolutely. So it depends on the type of experience they have, whether it's an organic contactee experience versus directed energy weapon oriented type of extraction. And I don't think that things are random as much as they are. Mine was premeditated from A to Z. So there was no, oh, this was an accident kind of thing. No, that didn't happen. But also they look at people, what you're capable of. If you're an athlete, they kind of profile you to see if you'd make a good candidate for the technologies that I'm talking about. With contactees, it's just about their ancestors, in my opinion, and also their state of consciousness and how evolved they are on the higher level of their own multidimensional design, which pulls that energetic in. Because when they're vibrating at multidimensional space, they're bringing in multidimensional energies. We're bringing in a different space-time. We're bringing in a different dimension. Wow. Intersecting and connecting in, so it's a very expansive thing.
Man, this is. I just looked up the clock. I'm like, good Lord, this hour is flown. I'm like, this is incredible. No, because for everybody that's go check on Amazon for people that are just tuning in or listening too. Is just check on Amazon. She's got just a line of books, all across these topics that we've kind of covered a little bit. I've kind of tried to stick a little, mainly to the alien intelligence, but I've also wanted to touch on some of the others. We kind of diverted. I'm
sorry about that. Yeah, we did. We diverted.
Well, this is about you, not me. So we have you on to talk about your work, not follow some script. That's the beauty of it. That's great. That's the beauty of our show, is it kind of deviates where it wants to go. But that's was there anything that we have not covered that you really wanted to get out there? Because like I said,
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, we've gone in a lot of different directions, and I want to thank all of you for having me on. It's been a great broadcast. There's really nothing I can say other than read my books and energy up and attune yourself to the multidimensional realm. I mean, really, it's about stepping up to the galactic neighborhood, and don't believe everything they're telling you. It's bigger than that. It's better than that, and we're part of it.
And then I'm going to show up here so everybody can see. So go to nightshadowanomalydetectives.com. This is her website. You can go through there. You have basically gives you a whole bio, what you have, and then if you go to Amazon, like we've been talking about alien intelligence, and you also, if I can get down here, you have got a lot of different things here. So here's
my book.
Yep. So list here, and then I really enjoyed alien intelligence. It was one of those, even though I won't lie, like I said, I promise, it was refreshing to have where it was way over my head on a few things. It was really cool to I have got to Google what that means and start looking at, just like I said, highlighting things. And that's where this is one of those books where I've got to highlight and I've got to break off and switch tabs and go just, and then, little thing I've just remembered. I know why I kept calling it Kyber, because I'm a Star Wars nerd. Kyber crystals.
All right.
That's why it was popping in my head. So for anybody, that's what it is. So and Mark, thank you for putting that up on the screen for everybody. So there's the website. Definitely go and plug your show, by the way, too, that you're on.
Oh, Hyperspace at KCOR Digital Radio Network. It's live every Friday, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. I also have Ravenstar's Witching Hour on freedomslips.com. That's on Saturdays at 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. If I'm not mistaken, I think y'all are going to be on my show at some point, aren't you? Do we talk about that or not? Excuse me.
I think we've talked about possibly. I don't know if we've got anything on the schedule yet. So I know
we'll have to talk.
You do a lot of stuff. Yeah, you do a lot of stuff with Mark and Barbara DeLong. I know you do stuff with them.
Her. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like we get everything out on Wednesdays, and then occasionally where we branch off and do other little stuff. But Solaris, man, I wish you the absolute best. There's several topics like the Emerald Tablets. I read that and I'm fascinated with those, and we're probably we need to do a show on those and bring you on and talk about that as well. But thank you so much for taking time out of your night coming on with us, and appreciate it. But everybody, please go purchase. If Alien Intelligence wasn't enough, there's, like I said on the screen, there's several other ones that follow these topics. Very well written books. I recommend it. So I'll be dropping a review on Amazon for you too, since I finished that one.
Well, thank you very much.
Haven't done that one yet.
Thank all of you. I wish you all the best too, and be safe out there with that hurricane.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, now it's just a matter of picking up the knocked over chairs.
And the little palm frond that fell.
Yeah, we got lucky. It veered. It was going to come right at us, and then it decided to keep west. So everybody over on the West Coast, they got a lot more than we did. But yeah, for us over here, it was just basically we got a little wet, is what happened for us. So that was good. But appreciate that. So have a great night, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. This episode. Oh, you're welcome. This episode was brought to you by Nanny Cakes. Go to Nanny Cakes 407 on Facebook, or give her a call at 407-923-2898. And if you mention Three Beards, you're going to save 15% off your entire cake order, which is an amazing deal, especially here in the Central Florida area. That's going to be the easiest way to get it. Outside, hey, that's up to you. You talk to Nancy. She'll figure out what to do for you. That's it. And go to redbubble.com. Three Beers Podcast is our merchandising. Thank you, everybody. We have 4 people that have purchased our shirts. I'm not including Austin, who's got his tank top coming. But we've 4 people have bought the shirts. We cannot thank you guys enough for investing in us. That means absolutely the world, because I can't tell you how honored I am that you guys are willing to wear our beards on you. So that is fantastic. Go to social medias across Twitter, Instagram. We're all over the place. YouTube, guys, if you could share, subscribe,
leave a comment.
Yeah, please do. That helps us out so much. And the more subscribers, the more comments we get, it's going to help us out. And so everybody, thanks for watching. We will see you on the next show, where we've got Joshua Cutchin coming on. We're going to talk about thieves in the night. So everybody, have a great night.